Modesto. Modesto. Slam on Rye in Modesto. Are y'all with us?
Yeah.
Y'all ready for your feature?
Yeah.
I said, oh, you're ready for your feature?
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear. I always give this blurb for the features that come up because I know them personally. This person is no exception. She is a new friend to me, but I will say she is the most winningest person in our particular Slam on Rye. She has won the most slams on Slam on Rye when we brought it back in September. Literally, she comes up here from all the way from Fresno. All the way from Fresno to take our money. All the way from Fresno to take our money. It's crazy how she does that every single month. She's so dedicated, but she's an amazing person. She's an amazing individual. She's an amazing poet, as you will see. She is somebody that I'm learning her skill set, and I'm enjoying to see her growth in this community, in the slam community, in the poetry community. It's just amazing to see someone shine. Amen?
Yeah.
Without further ado, I'm going to bring up, y'all put your hands together. Put your hands together. Put your hands together for LadyK.
Let's go, poets.
I'd like to take you on a journey, one that encapsulates equal parts cautionary tale and divine purpose. You see, this mocha melanated magic is black girl beauty personified. Dripping and seeping from every pore within my bountiful bosom is both intrigue and fantasy, double dipped in eloquent intelligence and mystery. A heart of priceless gold. One that has been used and abused, misunderstood, but is still determined for goodwill and peace. A little black girl who navigated a tumultuous childhood, one in which she wasn't black enough for the black kids, and never would she ever be white. A little girl with a proclivity towards an elevated vocabulary and precise articulation meant that she was oftentimes accused of having a desired propensity towards whiteness. God forbid she just have a love of books and words. Who do you think you are using all them big words? You sound like a white girl, because being black sounds a particular way. That little girl hadn't yet become this beautiful black woman standing before you today who, with my head held high and my shoulders back, only now can I confidently say to my haters, check it. I'm lyrically gifted, spiritually lifted, poetically inclined to run circles around the linguistically challenged. Study long, study wrong when confronted by my masterfully crafted wordplay. Meant to leave you mentally conflicted and debating my meanings while I artfully saunter into my next verbal masterpiece. Now that I have your attention, let me formally introduce you to LadyK. This is an honor and a privilege, and I'm not going to say too much because I get emotional quick, so we're just going to scan past this whole part. It's an honor and privilege to be able to stand here before you as your featured artist. I truly love this poetry thing that I get to do and travel the country. I am currently ranked number 6 in the country as a spoken word artist. And it has made me grow and evolve as a person in ways that I couldn't begin to explain to you. I am going to give a trigger warning at the very beginning of my set. This is things that are heavier. I really try. I wanted for this feature to be different than the artist that you see as a slam poet. And I wanted to bring you in a little bit more. So if y'all don't mind, I'm going to do some poems for y'all. Y'all good with that? And we just going to say new shit because it's all new shit.
New shit!
This first one is called What Turns Them to Stone. They ask the question so casually. Do you have children? And every time, I swear I can hear it before it happens. The soft slither of something ancient dragging itself awake inside me, a hiss beneath the ribs, scales shifting against memory, because there are questions that sound harmless until they touch the wrong wound. Because when I say I can't, people freeze. They become petrified. You can almost hear the cracking. See, everybody thinks Medusa's curse was turning people to stone, but nobody talks enough about what it must have felt like to watch people become unreachable the moment they truly saw her, to realize your pain had made you unbearable to look at directly. And I know that feeling intimately, because grief like mine doesn't just live in the body, it slithers through holidays where babies pass between hands like blessings, while I hold paper plates pretending my arms aren't empty. Paper plates, women like me were never designed to survive the weight people place on them. Yet somehow they do. We do. Heat weakening the center corners, curling upward like something trying not to hiss, and still we carry. That feels familiar. My motherhood became serpentine the moment it was severed from me, transformed into something people don't know how to touch safely, because I was a mother. That truth still coils inside me, and maybe that's the part people don't understand. Snakes shed skin, but they do not stop existing. Neither does motherhood, not after loss or force. See, the story of women has always been written in the language of transformation. First, there was Lilith, the woman who refused to lie beneath a man just because heaven said she should. And somehow her refusal became monstrosity. History called her demon because patriarchy has always known how to weaponize mythology against women who choose themselves. But I wonder how much of that story was just fear wearing scripture as camouflage. Because men have always trembled at women who refuse submission, and Medusa feels familiar. Violated inside a temple, then punished for reminding the gods what male entitlement looks like up close. People say Poseidon cursed her entering her body. I think the deeper curse what came after. How easily the violated woman became the problem, and maybe that's why doctors felt like Poseidon to me. Because they stood above me speaking in fluorescent language like my body was already public property. Clinical, detached, priests of inevitability standing over an altar deciding which parts of me were survivable. My body became territory negotiable, something to be entered, managed, overruled. And Athena, sometimes the women closest to us become disciples of the systems that wounded them first. My mother survived storms by worshiping survival itself, even when survival cost casualties. And I wonder sometimes if Athena punished Medusa because what happened forced her to confront how powerless even goddesses were inside patriarchal worlds. Maybe it was easier to transform the daughter than challenge the gods. Maybe that's the inheritance women keep passing down. Survive, even if it costs your daughters. People worship mothers as symbols, but abandon women the moment motherhood stops looking beautiful. And women like me, forced into impossible decisions, we become mythological creatures to society, neither maiden nor mother. So society invents monster, and people freeze instead. Wild how many poets I know swear poetry saved their life. Like we don't say it lightly, don't toss it around like a metaphor we haven't tested. We mean there were nights my veins felt louder than my thoughts. When silence sat on my chest like it knew my name, and the only thing standing between me and becoming a headline was a pen that refused to let me disappear quietly. Because it's a strange kind of medicine, this bleeding on a page so you don't bleed out in real life. A controlled hemorrhage. I learned early if I was going to lose myself, it was going to be in ink. Because I have stood on the precipice of myself, toe to toe with endings that looked like relief, and every time poetry stepped in. No sirens or flashing lights, just a blank page and a pulse barely holding on. So I wrote. Through shaking hands and blurred vision, I wrote like I was applying pressure to an invisible wound. And somehow, ink became clotting agent. Every poem a pressure point, and don't get it twisted, this wasn't a one-time miracle. Poetry didn't just save me once, it kept showing up every time the room got too quiet and my thoughts too loud. Verses turned into verbs, dragging me back into my body when I was already halfway gone. Because poetry don't just sit pretty on a page, it does something. It intervenes, it grabs you mid-spiral and says, stay, so I did. Not because life got easier, but because I found a way to survive myself out loud. And maybe that's why this community has felt more like blood than my own bloodlines. Because DNA ain't never guaranteed to know how to hold you without hurting you. But I've seen strangers recognize my wounds like they helped stitch them. We be out here forming soul ties and open mics and dim lit venues, binding ourselves together, not by ancestry, but by shared survival. We are not related by birth, but by rupture. By the way we've all almost bled out and choose instead to write it out. So yeah, it's wild how many poets I know say poetry saved their life. But what's wilder is how many times it saved mine. How many nights I should have been a memory but became a metaphor instead. How many times I put the shame down, picked the pen up, and let the page take what would have taken me. So when I say poetry saved my life, understand this isn't poetry, it's documentation. Evidence logged in ink from a body that refused to become a statistic because there were nights I was on the edge of being remembered in past tense. And the only reason you get to experience me in present form is because I learned how to bleed responsibly. So don't you ever reduce this just to art. This is triage. Survival with a microphone, because I am not standing here as a metaphor. I'm standing here as a miracle with receipts, a body that learned how to turn internal bleeding into public testimony and live to tell the story. So when I say poetry saved my life, believe me, because if it didn't, you wouldn't be clapping, you'd be grieving. So slight backstory about this. For those of you that don't know, if you've heard all night before every poet goes up, I say, let's go, poet. And it has become, across the country, it's become really a thing. And so I had to write a piece about what I'm doing because it's intentional. Every time, it's hard. We talked about that earlier. It's so hard to get up on this stage and be able to pour your heart out and have complete strangers judge you on what you're doing. And there was a lot of times I was in these spaces by myself. And so me doing Let's Go Poet was me imparting a little bit of that goodwill onto someone else. And so I wrote a piece like, here it go. When I say, let's go, poet, it ain't just hype, it's a benediction wrapped in bassline. A battle cry hummed in honey, the kind of sound that wakes something deep in your bones and dares it to speak. It's not just encouragement, it's enchantment. A melodic spell cast in real time to remind your spirit, you got this. You've poured ink into midnight, rewritten your wounds into wisdom, turned trembling into testimony. This moment is not an accident. You were built for this stage. When I say it, I'm tuning the frequency of your throat chakra, unlocking every syllable, the every shy behind your teeth, charging your tongue with the courage of every ancestor who whispered truth when it was dangerous to do so. I say it with rhythm for a reason. So it echoes inside you, rattles your doubt loose, and leaves only clarity and conviction. Let's go, poet. Means if nobody else claps, I will still be standing. Means I believe in your voice like it's scripture, and I'm the first church. It's me saying, this mic is yours. The truth is welcome, the floor is ready, and I am with you in every breath, in every line, in every truth you birth tonight. So go on, say what needs to be said. Shake the room with your stories. Let the words do what only yours can. Because when I say, let's go, poet, I mean, rise up, speak out, shine. The world is waiting. And LadyK will always have your back. Home. hand get out your way. I decided to give y'all something light because I'm probably about to sucker punch a lot of y'all. I apologize ahead of time. I love y'all though. Slight backstory for these last two poems. As I talked about in the first poem, I've been through a lot. I am, in 2 weeks, I will be 48 years old. So I lived a lot of life. And I unfortunately was forced to have an abortion at 13 years old. And it made me not be able to have children. And so 35 years later, I still have moments where I struggle with that. And so these last two poems came from that place. Everything that I do in my life, I feel like it's my way of honoring my baby girl in the only way that I know how. And so these last two pieces are dedicated to Aaliyah Marie Wright. And this one is called The 32nd of Forever. I had a whole breakdown this morning trying to remember a date that refuses to remember me back. Somewhere in the calendar of my life, there is a day that holds both your arrival and your absence, and I cannot find it. I turn over months like pages in a book I didn't get to finish. March. I know it was March or maybe early April. Was I still wearing long sleeves trying to hide what I didn't have language for yet? The 12th, the 18th. No, that doesn't feel right. I just know I was 13. Old enough to remember something happened, too young to understand what it took from me. I scan years like I'm looking for a name that should have been written in ink, but all I find is blur and shame. Tries to speak first, says, what kind of mother forgets the day her child was born and buried in the same breath? What kind of mother loses the timestamp of a life she still mourns, but grief is not a calendar. Trauma does not file itself neatly into boxes labeled, remember this, I was 13. Where consent was a language I had not yet been taught, my body became a place where something happened instead of somewhere I belonged. So no, I don't remember the date, but I remember the weight, the silence that didn't follow. I remember growing up around a grief no one gave me permission to name, so I made you one, the 32nd. A day that doesn't exist for anyone else, but it does for me. It lives in the quiet space between the end of one month and the beginning of the next, where time excels, where nothing has to be proven to be real. Because how many of us are carrying people who don't have a date we can return to? How many names live in the margins, the almost, the could have beens, and stories that never got a full sentence? How many of us have loved someone who only exists in memory or imagination or somewhere in between? Maybe that's where they are. Not gone, just unrecorded, filed somewhere outside the limits of calendars that only count what was allowed to live. So no, I don't remember the date, but I gave you one. A day untouched by erasure, a day that cannot be misremembered, rewritten, or taken from me, a day that belongs only to us. And on the 32nd, I get to imagine you fully, your face, your smile, your voice. I get to hear you call me what the world never let you say. I get to be your mother out loud, and I need you to know you were loved, you are loved. Not in past tense or apology, but in the kind of love that survived without proof, pictures, without permission to exist. So if anyone asks me when you were born, I'll tell them you live on the 32nd. In the space time couldn't hold on a day the world doesn't recognize, but I do. I always will, even if the world never learns how to count you. Poem. Finally, like I said, I am a spiritual person, and so I always believe that there is a reason behind everything, even if that's hard. And so this last piece called God's Plan is me refiguring that. At 13, decisions are fool's gold. Shiny enough to trust, worthless Once the weight hits, consent is a language you haven't learned yet, especially when authority wears a white coat and speaks like scriptures. At 13, my body entered a lineage it never volunteered for. A footnote in a study I would never get credit for, like Henrietta Lacks before me, cells taken without permission, a legacy built while the woman herself was left unprotected. They didn't ask, they assumed. And my parent told me, this is what you're going to do, not a suggestion. A prophecy dressed up as obedience, as if God had already spoken and forgot to include me in the conversation. That's when my faith fractured. Not because I stopped believing, but because I started wondering how much of God's plan is just human convenience said loud enough to sound divine. They made barren land out of my womb before my hands learned the patience of soil. No seasons, tending, or planting, just extraction. So I did what abandoned land is trained to do. I rezoned myself, turned desolation into a strip mall of emotions, everything open late, nothing built to last, grief next to rage, shame wedged in between humor and hunger, hope tucked into a corner suite with a coming soon sign. I pieced together facades, storefront smiles, polished windows, a sale sign that reads, I'm okay, in bold font so no one asked for the blueprint. Because survival taught me how to function, not how to flourish. And as I wander these corridors after closing time, I wonder if peace is something you can manufacture. And lately, I've been wondering if my conversations with God are really just conversations with my baby girl. If the quiet I call prayer is me listening for what her voice might have been. Is it possible that she is my salvation after all, that somehow she is her mother's keeper since her mother couldn't keep her? I don't know where heaven ends and memory begins. I just know something sacred still answers me. And if those conversations sound like her, then so be it. Maybe heaven trusted you to keep watch over me since this world wouldn't let me keep you. Mommy? Yes, baby girl. I love you too. Thank God so much. It is an honor and privilege. Every time I come here, I've told Sam this many times, every time I come here, I feel like I'm coming home. I only travel places that I feel like I'm welcome, and every time I've been here, it's been nothing but love and support. I'm so happy to be able to share these stories with y'all and to continue coming back. I hope y'all do. For anyone who feels that I hope poetry gives you the same thing that it's given me, the amount of healing and catharsis that I get from this magical art form is beyond anything I could explain to you in monetary compensation. So thank you for letting me share that with y'all. I have merch available. You can see me back there, talk to me. I'd love to see all of y'all. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Sam, Queen. Thanks, everybody.
Beautiful, man. That was
One more time for our feature, LadyK. We can do better than that. Our feature, LadyK. Yes. Oh, gotta get myself together. Hold
Take
on
your
a second.
time.
One second. All right. So, we're going to our second round of the slam. Are you ready?